let that be your transition. Actually, unless you have something more you want to say on that, Dr. Rod?
No, I'm done.
You're done. Oh, there's always more. There's always more. And I actually think that that's actually a good transition, because talking about, letting God judge between us, that sometimes when there's an exit, there's a lot of judging that's done, a lot of rumors, a lot of gossiping that happens around, oh, that person left, those people are no longer together, and there's all these conspiracies that happen, and there's so many people judging what happened in the situation without actually knowing. And so the next point that I want to talk about is actually a car story. Yes, at the start, before we started recording, Dr. Rod turned around and goes, is there going to be a car story every week? And I'm like, probably not, but quite regularly, maybe. I love my cars. That's my guilty pleasure is cars. When I want some escapism, I open up YouTube and I watch some automotive YouTube vloggers, because that's kind of my escape. I love cars. There is one channel that I follow, which is called DDE. They're called Daily Driven Exotics, and they're vloggers of supercars, and they do up supercars, and they do all these crazy things with supercars. And the owner, or the main guy on the channel, is Damon Fryer. He is I would say, from what I see on the outset, from what I see his persona, is he is an alpha male. An alpha, true alpha male, with the ego and everything, the confidence and the bravado. And I mean, he's built quite a success around. He has countless supercars, and he's got one of the most successful YouTube channels. Now, he actually partnered with a guy called Dean Kearney, and from Carnage Race Drifting. He's a drift racer, an Irish drifter, and they started doing some collaborations together. They partnered on the racing team together and everything like that. And then a couple of months ago, all of a sudden, they were no longer in each other's videos. All of a sudden, no one was mentioning it. All of a sudden, they weren't tagging each other in social media posts and everything like that. And it stirred up the internet, or the supercar community anyway, of part of the internet. And it just brought forward, there was all these other things. That there's another YouTuber that called Houston Croster that also had apparently a falling out with Damon Fryer from DDE. And there was all these conspiracies and everything. But from their end, they were just silent. Like, it just went quiet. No one spoke about anything. There were a couple of things mentioned about it, but just sort of, there's people that are no longer with our organization. That's it. And then it moved on. And I think it's very interesting, Dr. Rod, why is it that when there's a split, especially a public one, why is it that there's all these conspiracy theories that flow around the situation? Everyone's got their take on the situation.
Well, I think that's because conspiracies fill a vacuum. There's something about us human beings we like to know. And when we don't have all the information, we just like to close the gap. And I think this is one of the downsides of social media, as a matter of fact, that, when these things become, I guess, shared publicly, there are lots and lots of people who are more than ready to fill the gaps in knowledge. And as a result, we get what some people might call conspiracy theories. We certainly get a lot of speculation, and obviously much of it is not true, because we don't know the truth. And so I feel pretty uncomfortable reading some of this stuff on social media, as I did here, because I didn't have any idea what you were talking about when you briefed me a week or so ago. And I sat down and watched the videos. I still don't know much more than I did when I started. But I think it's pretty unfortunate that so much of this is played out in social media. But look, I've been on both sides of this issue. I've been on a board where we found it necessary to part company with the CEO. And we couldn't say very much publicly at all. And we came under a lot of criticism, but we had to keep our lips tightly zipped for legal reasons. But also I felt that to be fair to the person involved and others involved, we couldn't make any public statements at all. And that was a pretty difficult period. And of course, with social media, we got whacked a fair bit in the social media and simply had to take it. So I feel pretty sorry for the people involved in these kinds of things. But I do think what's important is that relationships are maintained. And
that's a good point.
If behind this there's a breakdown in relationship, then I really do think that it's incumbent upon all of the parties to do everything they can to repair the relationship. And we will probably never see, in public what's going on there. And I think, that goes back to the Meghan Markle issue as well. We only see all this public sparring, comments made publicly, and the media, of course, is always wanting to grab onto these. And so it is, on all forms of social media. We don't always know really what's going on in the hearts of people or what's going on behind the scenes. But if I was mentoring any of these people or advising any of these people, I would say just forget about the social media, really, because ultimately it doesn't matter. What really does matter is that if relationships are broken, then you need to do all you can to repair the relationships.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like when there's a public split, when I say public, it's something that, even just in your circle of friends is kind of public. Sometimes silence is important. Sometimes because people need to be able to, I suppose, gather themselves and refocus and re-step, even if there has been a problem. We don't need to expose everything, but so for example, and I've shared this, is that, I was partnered with Wes Hone and we were doing some great things there, and I felt the Lord move us on to be able to spend time with the family. And I just felt like radio silence was what was best in the time. There was nothing wrong. It was just, you know what? I don't want to distract from what he's doing. You do that. I'm going to be a little quiet and just build in the background. And, luckily I had this app and the program to kind of definitely, bury my head into and just use our focus. And it was just good to be quiet for a season, just to allow some breathing room, because I go back to this DDE issue and the Dean Carnage separation. They're now kind of back strong. Dean's now got his own YouTube channel and he's now vlogging regularly and everything like that. So it just seemed like they just needed that little bit of breathing space to kind of gather, what does it look like by myself, and what is it, and then kind of come back. And so sometimes silence is, silence is sometimes really important for us to do. The other thing I wanted to kind of mention with it is just because there's silence doesn't mean there was a problem. So
no, it doesn't. And I think this gets back to that comment I made earlier about conspiracy theory, gossip and so on, filling the vacuum.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's none of our business what's happening. So, in the case of you, as it were, having radio silence for a while, well, what business is it even of mine if that's the case? And we just need to be so careful that we don't fill in the gap or say, well, there must have been something terrible happen between them, when in fact there was really a transition going on to a different set of circumstances. So, the Bible doesn't like gossip.
Yes.
We're strongly discouraged from being gossipers, because that's one of the things that keeps people out of heaven, Not once we're saved, of course, that's a different issue. But, it's on the same level as, say, sexual sin as far as the Bible is concerned. And look, as Christians, we should refrain from gossiping. So let's not try to fill in the gaps of knowledge where something has become, something public. The only qualification I would make, Craig, is that when people seek to be public figures, and on social media you can actually nominate yourself as a public figure, then I think you do have some level of responsibility to the public. So we just need to balance that a little bit as well. When you say I'm a public figure, you're benefiting from the number of followers that you have because you're getting more through advertising and so on and so forth, then to some extent they've become stakeholders.
100%.
And stakeholders do need to have something. So we've just got to balance that a little bit. I tend to go on the side of privacy on the part of the individuals, but where you've really cultivated the public as a public figure, then they are stakeholders, and stakeholders are owed some duty in this regard.
Hey, you just watched an excerpt from our On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you'd like to see the full episodes, check out our YouTube channel and consider subscribing.